your host. I'm real excited about my guests this evening. I've known Alejandro for over a decade now, and we became good friends. And he and I were on each other's show. If you have listened to old shows, you would hear and him over at openminds.tv, his UFO show. We were trading back and forth for every show for, I don't know, a few years anyway, maybe even longer. But anyway, I'm real excited to have Alejandro on. He has a new nonprofit that he has founded and started that has to do with UAP UFOs. And this week we have a trucker reports a UFO follows him nightly. It's a really interesting case. Again, our blogger's Charles Lear. And check that out over at podcastufo.com. And without further ado, I'm bringing in our special guest, Alejandro. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Seems like it's been a while, has it?
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
It does feel like a while.
I think so. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Even this show was a while in the making.
That's right. That's right. But so you're with Enigma Labs now too. You've been there for has it been 2 or 3 years now?
Yeah, I think it's coming on 3 years. I'll be with them. I started as a contractor. I was full-time for a while. I'm a contractor again, but yeah, still working with Enigma Labs.
And let's why don't you tell the audience what exactly that is? I have the app on my phone, and I got to tell you, you have a really good outreach program because I've been contacted a few times, people asking me if I want to report my sightings and stuff. So someone knows that I had a sighting. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we do have someone who's keeping an eye on the internet and looking for people who talk about sightings, and then she will say, hey, we've got this reporting app if you want to report it here or report at the website. And that's essentially what we're doing. We have this app where you can submit your report and you can view reports from all over the world. So we've ingested, the reports from older organizations, but we've also got our own sightings there. And right now we're getting more sightings than I think any org has gotten before on a regular basis. We're getting hundreds a week. And it's pretty exciting. So what I'll do is I do a lot of vetting some of the best ones that I put up on the content feed. So when you open up the app, there's the first icon on the bottom left. And if you click that, you'll just get a stream of some pretty interesting videos, some of which are really kind of boggling. And then, of course, you've got a world map where you can see all the sightings around the world. We've got a couple tools in there for people looking for UFOs. We have a camera in there. The camera is really cool because if you use it, you can see all the telemetry that your phone gives. So in other words, in the border, you'll see the angle your phone is at, your elevation, your location, all of this kind of metadata that's being captured with videos in the background. Then when you take a video and you view it through the app, you'll be able to get a 3D simulation of where you are on a map 3D, just like a Google 3D type of map. That's super helpful if at night, you're doing a video and you see something on the horizon, this thing will show you that, oh, maybe that was a building or a mountain or something like that. When you click the other tab for the identify tab, what we've done is we've combined all of those kind of really important researcher tools. So those tools that tell you what planets or satellites or even airplanes are in the sky, we've combined that into one app where you can point that at the sky and see the satellites and everything to make sure that you are looking at something unusual. Because really the idea here is collecting data, getting videos so we can analyze this, so we can really make some scientific kind of ground in understanding UAP and the nature of them and being able to prove something, come with receipts to figure out what's going on. So it's really exciting. It has been an Apple app thus far. Limited functionality on the website, but you can submit sightings. Although on the website, we do have a library of some really great articles about, you can get a education on the history of this topic in the library on the website. But we are working on Android, and we're pretty focused on that right now. So hopefully we should have that probably by end of year, and that'll be exciting because a lot of people are asking for that.
Well, this seems I mean, it's pretty obvious this is really focuses on applications instead of on your phone, basically, which you always have with you. So it does make
Exactly.
a lot of sense. And you hear here it is finally. I'm having my computer's been asleep for a week while I've been gone. It's acting very weird and slow.
A
But
little sluggish for being
yeah,
asleep for a week.
but anyway, that's a pretty cool website, pretty cool graphics. And
Yeah,
these
so there you
are
go.
yeah.
You see what
Um,
the app looks like, how easy it is to put in, easy and fun to put your sighting in there, and then there's the map there, so you could see all of the sightings everywhere. And of course, there's a ton. Then you can scroll through, like you see here, and see the videos. Uh, so it's to me, it's a great tool. I mean, we've hit the ground running. We're constantly listening to customer feedback, doing a lot of outreach. Our ratings on the Apple Store are like 5-star. People love it. So it's going really, really well.
that's great. Now, um, does it also have like statistics, like people are reporting, on a triangular object or a cigar-shaped object, things like that. Are you can you actually pull statistics out of it?
No, you can't pull any statistics yet.
Hmm.
Although on occasion we will. We did a blog post not too long ago where we had our data scientists do some of that work. What we found was kind of interesting. We did find for us, New Mexico was per capita or per capita. There were a lot more sightings, which isn't too surprising because the Southwest, in general, most databases have a lot more sightings than other places in the United States. As far as shapes go, though, if you click on the Explore button, you're going to be able to see some stats, including shapes, like what you're saying, at least the most commonly reported shapes. And in that Explore area, you can get more data about your state or country in there. Yeah, if you went to, yeah, there you go. So you'll get a little that'll pop up right here.
Wow.
So on the left-hand side, you can see what countries have the most
Yeah.
data. If you clicked on the United States, you'd have to find it under the U, of course. Then when you clicked on
Oh
each
yeah.
state, you'll get a little bit of stats on every state there.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
why don't you
great.
try it out? So
Yeah.
try out your state and it'll tell you what sightings. Of course, it's, which is actually kind of a good thing. We're finding what we found at MUFON or we found at different groups all along is that points of light are by far the most reported, orbs
Right.
or luminous balls of light. And then when it comes to others, you've got next will be like discs or triangles. If you scroll down, I think you'll be able to see a little bit of stats there.
Oh, I see what it is. Yeah.
So those are the
So
number of sightings in the different states. And then if you
wow.
click a state, you'll get a little more information. And
I see.
we do plan to make this more robust and increase our search functions. To be honest, the search functionality has kind of it's been a little bit more time in the making because we've been really focused on the functionality and usability of the app.
I have to ask you something. I was kind of like goofing off this last weekend, to be honest with you. I wasn't really paying much attention, but all of a sudden I started getting these people sending me all these UFO videos that were being filmed, I think in California. And a couple of them looked really, really interesting. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that turned out to be not California. The videos were from Hawaii and they were from a Pokemon
Oh,
event. Um, but along those lines, we're keeping an eye out on all of the news like that. And I can
that's a
even
riot.
share
Yeah.
some, but yeah. So we're keeping I still, post news on a regular basis, at least on my social media, just like I've always done. So we're keeping an
Yep.
eye on the articles and what's going on out there. And of course, a lot of the news viral UFO sightings are nothing burgers, but like that one. But we do keep an eye out there. And sometimes, a lot of times, we will have reports related to some of these news articles, not this one. Um, for instance, in Denver, we did with the Red Rocks, we had a video that was submitted at the exact same time, about 10 miles away. I'm convinced it's the same thing they saw.
Wow. I did see another one though that I will tell you that was very interesting, and it was a grouping of lights, different colored lights.
Uh-oh, I think your microphone cut off. At least I can't hear you.
Oh,
There we go.
okay.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, you hear me all right? Yeah. So there was a grouping of lights that was in a formation that was really a very, very interesting sighting that I just saw. I mean, it's not always news. It seems to me there's a lot of activity on Twitter.
Well, as usual, there's activity all over the place. Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly why we've got someone out there letting people know that, hey, if you see something submitted to our site, and a lot of people will ask, well, what the advantage is, if we'll do an analysis, and we don't necessarily do an analysis. In fact, if you submit a sighting, just because we accept it, and you will get an email that says we accept it, it means that there's no cussing in it. You didn't submit something inappropriate, and it's not a hoax.
Oh,
That's all
yeah.
we're looking out for because we want to record all that data. I even was reviewing with the team today instances in which, like California, or other instances in which there are hoaxes, maybe that someone's put some balloons up with blinking lights inside of them. We want to collect all of that data because it then gives us, we can look into it, we can help people figure out that it is a hoax, and then we can figure out where that took place, and have that historical data there if it happens again. So there's a lot of value to the 95% of the reports that are submitted that turn out to be something mundane. That data is still important.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have had the conversation many times. There's enough really great stuff out there, very interesting things out there that are unexplainable, and nothing really has to be embellished as long as you can cut away all the miscellaneous. There's still a lot of really interesting things, and
Yeah,
I'd rather know if I mean, a few times that I've gotten really
yeah.
excited on my own. Showing this video to Mark D'Antonio, I didn't think it was a drone at all. Very, very windy night, but he thinks it's a drone, and I have to agree with him, if because so involved in trying to figure that type of stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. And um, beyond that, and I've got a couple of examples of that we've already ran across that I want to go over. Now that you bring that up, but um, but yeah, it's better to report than not. And a lot of people get embarrassed. So, for example, I did a video recently on Open Minds about Starlink because we've been getting a lot of reports and that turned out to be Starlink. We've even had a couple of groups of reports that made some news. And I had some quotes in these articles. And then later, doing some more research, I found out they did happen to be related to Starlink. What is confusing a lot of people is the I can even try to bring those up because they're really fascinating. They're super fun videos because they're just incredible. Like, for instance, there's a few videos where we're getting what looks like a rocket, which rockets typically look like a bright light with sort of a aura around them, which is
Yeah,
the gas that is usually following along with it. But all of a sudden, there's this explosion where this circular kind of thing goes out of
yeah,
it.
beautiful,
Um,
actually. Yeah,
so those turn out to be, well,
one.
in particular, this one, I don't think I'm probably talking about something different than you're referring to. But in this case, it's the second stage of the rocket. The second stage has to orient itself, and then it'll hit its rocket to slow down so it can land safely, or it doesn't land, it breaks up in the sky, but any pieces left will land safely in the ocean. But some people are capturing that moment and the videos look extraordinary.
Right.
So that's a case where people get embarrassed. Or there's another one, this racetrack UFOs. I'm not sure if you've heard of this one. In fact, they were in the news recently where a pilot posted a video of UFOs, and just last week, I think it went kind of viral. That's not a UFO. That's Starlink. How do we know this? People like Ben Hansen have been researching these types for a very long time. And he didn't know what they were at first, but then they found out that it is the satellite trains. When you're in an aircraft at night and you see them, they can look like they're one object going in a circle or a couple objects going in a circle, when they're actually a whole train of multiple objects passing through an area that is luminous, where you can see them from a moment. From a pilot perspective, it looks really strange. That's what that video was. But people don't know this. And when he let pilots know that that's what this was, a lot of them got kind of upset. Some got a little embarrassed. You've dealt with this probably when you've told people, I think your sighting is this or that. But what I try to remind people is that you don't have to be embarrassed, because that data turned out to be super valuable. And now we have examples of this phenomena that people are seeing, and we can tell them what it is. And otherwise, we wouldn't have had that if people reported, or hadn't had reported. So those reports are really important, even if it turns out to be something mundane.
Right. It seems like a lot of things happened to me in the hot tub. I had my UFO sighting in a hot tub.
Yeah, that's what you said.
And also there was the most incredible thing was a fireball that was just amazing. That was back in the 80s, though, late 80s. But this a few months ago down in South Carolina, I was in a hot tub again out back, and I saw Starlink, and that was so cool. And I did get some pictures. What's that?
Did you see a train of them? Or
yes, it was. I forget. I do remember I counted how many I counted. There was quite a few. All linked together, dot, evenly spaced apart. And I do have some pictures. And while we're talking, I'm going to see if I can find.
Starlink has caused a lot of problems, including those in particular, because the other phenomena that happens that is fooling pilots as well is when they're launched. They launch 20 of them together, so they're in a really tight group. And a lot of times when people take pictures or videos, they look like they're one solid luminous tube when they're not. That was another one. We got one from Montana that we got into the news, and it made some news. And then again, I found out that was likely Starlink, and pilots have taken these. There was a paper written by one of the new board of directors with the SCU, Dr. Doug Bittner, where him and Richard Griffith, some others, you might remember this. So essentially, SCU had a guy at the conference who wrote a paper on this luminous object that pilots saw. Well, it turned out, once he put some of the information out during the SCU conference, people were like, no, that's Starlink. That's a train of Starlink. So they re-examined it. Dr. Bittner and others, including the original scientists, put out a new paper showing you're right. That this luminous, what looked to seem like one solid, large luminous tube, was actually a train of Starlink satellites. So that's another thing that's happening.
Yeah, I can't seem to find that picture right now. I did post it on my Facebook page, so it's available. I just can't find it. But I remember, having conversations with you 10 years ago when we'd be saying, oh, it's going to get worse and worse, with the drones and the Chinese lanterns, and and it's true. And I mean, there's just so much that looks so unusual. And yeah, those the second stage, like you're talking about, and the failed launches, those cause such amazing bright lights, and it looks so mysterious in the sky. There was that famous one in Norway, I think it was, or somewhere.
Yeah,
that was
Norway.
Just amazing. And
I think 2008, right? This huge spiral in the sky.
Yeah. So, and that I do believe that one was a failed launch,
correct?
Right? Yeah,
because essentially what happens is it's going up, it fails, and it had something spewing out of the side, which made it spin. And then that gas that spewed created this huge spiral that luminesced. at the right time of the day. And that's essentially what's happening with Starlink. And what's interesting is, I went out to Huntington just a few weeks ago with Ben Hansen again. And well, we were out there separately, but we met up with him in time to get to the beach near him so we could watch a Starlink launch. And all you could see is a little bit of exhaust from the rocket as it went up. It was fun. It was exciting. I was happy, but it was too early to get that huge jellyfish UFO kind of effect that a lot of people get. Right after dusk is when, it's just, this is a nature phenomena. It's just like contrails. You have to have the right things in the right place for this phenomena to manifest. And especially these rocket ones are really exciting. Now that we have rockets flying on a regular basis, sometimes daily.
I know, it's amazing. All what Musk is doing for one. I mean, he's that whole company has been going crazy with launches.
It's
And
something like 2018, we had somewhere around 2,000 satellites in orbit. Now, SpaceX alone has over 6,000 in orbit, just to show the difference.
Yeah. And I had heard that, I can't remember what the number is, but I heard within, I think within 5 years, they expect a bunch more than that. Is that right?
They're maxing out. I think, I don't know that they've totally shared their ultimate goals, but I think they want to max out around 8,000 or something. They're getting pretty close, but still, because those will begin to deteriorate, and then they'll need to replace those over time. But it's interesting. And a lot of people get frustrated, but at the same time, the ability for some rural farmer to have high-speed internet all of a sudden is extraordinary. That you can get great internet anywhere in the world. It's a give and take.
Right. Here's a question for you here, Christopher. I'm sorry, I'm having there. It almost worked.
It worked for a second. I wasn't quick enough to read the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. There it is. Wondering if there's a thought to be what? There's a thought to
a mundane explanation for a UAP. I and others have seen a dark or reflective disc or triangle at night, hard edges, no lights. No, that sounds like a really great one. That would definitely be odd. Of course, there are drones or maybe dirigibles that could fly around with their lights off. Both are extremely, well, the latter especially is extremely uncommon because that would be very unsafe. So that wouldn't be likely. The difficulty, which comes back to something our good buddy Lee Spiegel used to always talk about, is wouldn't it be easy if these UAP didn't want to be seen just to fly around with their lights off? Because, for instance, try to get a picture of that. You're not. How are you going to get any evidence that you're experiencing this large dark object over your house at night? That's going to be really, really difficult unless somehow you could shine a spotlight at it. So, that would be a great one.
Yeah. And someone just said they've heard numerous reports of the same too. I've never heard of anything exactly like that. With that,
I've heard a couple reports. I've heard reports like that for sure. But it's one of those tough ones because what can you do with it?
Right. Yeah. So, what is what would you say is the most? You said points of light in the sky is the most common, and what would you say follows after that? Is it mostly nighttime sightings? Is that why?
There's definitely mostly nighttime sightings, yes. And of course, that's something that can get, well, two things, I would say. And I'd love, your input as well, because you talk to so many people. But it's one, because it's a light at night, very easy to misidentify lights in the night sky. However, at the same time, at least for me, one of the most intriguing and most common reports I get, even in our app or anecdotally, is that people are watching what they think is a satellite, and then it zigzags or it turns and it goes the other direction or something like that. Those are really exciting. We actually have that Dr. Bittner that I referenced earlier, who's an astronautical PhD in astronomical engineering. I think that's what it is. I may have it wrong, but it's astro something engineering. But he does a lot of work with defense and otherwise. He is actually looking at one of our cases in which it's kind of similar. It's a one light in the sky that normally, if it was moving straight and consistently in one direction, you would just say, "Oh, that's just a satellite." But this thing changes directions very quickly, stops a couple times, one time for 3 minutes. It just sits there in the sky and it looks exactly like a star, any of the other stars in the night sky. Then it moves again, quite a distance, turns around, and then goes out of screen. That one's getting a lot of people really excited because it's hard to understand what that might be. So while a lot of these single light phenomena are misidentifications, and it's super easy to misidentify just a single light in the sky, there's also some really good cases out there that are just a single light as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this, Alejandro, but this last year I went on a music cruise, like I've done the last few years,
Cool.
and
I think you
I,
did actually.
yeah, well, I was getting coffee, and I looked over, and I have his picture somewhere, but I look over and I recognize the guy from the band The Zombies, 1960s band, great band from the 60s, a lot of songs at the time of the season, stuff like that. Um, so we started talking. It was a really fun talk, and he was a really interesting guy and all this. And then he kind of asked me what I did. And I said, well, I do, antiques and fine art. I'm an appraiser and all that stuff. And then I said, well, then I also do this really kind of unusual thing. I do a show on UFOs. And he goes, oh my God, we were meant to meet each other. So the night before, on the ship, way out at sea, he was out on. They have an upper deck. The bands can, have special suites up there, and so he's out on the deck alone, basically. And he said, just like you're talking about, he said at first he thought he saw a star, but it was moving, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and then it went one way like that, and it zigzagged a couple more times back and forth, and then it shot off. And he says he's been dying to talk to someone about it. So he talked to everyone in the band about it, but he was going to be on the show, but the band, there was someone has a health problem, so they're not
That's
no longer
exciting.
touring. Yeah.
Because Arrow had even admitted that there were metallic orbs that they were witnessing that they don't know what they are. A huge, huge tell, I think, that everybody has forgotten or ignored because everybody's head. I don't know what people are thinking in this field anymore, but everybody just isn't paying attention. I guess they're just chasing their tails. But my point being that, I think that at the very least is something that we've seen over time that there are potentially, I think, a most likely scenario that even, Kirkpatrick and Avi Loeb wrote that paper that kind of talked about this too. The idea that perhaps there are probes or something coming, at a distance. And if that's the phenomena that's extremely interesting. And I'm so excited, like this sighting that we've talked about that Dr. Bittner is looking at and others are examining, because that's what's really exciting about this point in time is that you and I have heard stories after story after story. You can hear stories all day long, but they don't get you very far. It's time to, and we have the ability to use technology to gather data, to analyze that data, and finally lay a baseline for what is going on in this phenomena, and hopefully or potentially proving that there's something, extraordinary going on. And that would be incredible. And I'm really excited about that. and the possibility of that. And I think that efforts like what we're doing with Enigma, what Galileo's doing or wants to do, and others with deploying systems. If NASA could get on the ball and do some of the things that NASA panel suggested, along with the
Yeah.
FAA, gathering some data from pilots. Pilots are out there on their own. They really have no place to report. They can report to the control tower, but they have no direction given to them on how to report something. And that's pretty tragic. That's good data that is good in getting lost. But at least people are listening, and there's I think, a road to being able to gather data and make some really on the books, hard discoveries that even mainstream science can wrap their head around, and we can move off of. And I think that that's really, really important. But I do think, and I would tell your audience, have patience. And when you're trolling government agencies, you're doing so much irreparable damage. I think NASA essentially said we would like to do something, but people are just too mean. There's too many jerks out there, and nobody wants to work in this field. And anecdotally, I hear that in the background when it comes to science and mainstream. But NASA essentially said that in their panel. That's what they started with, that they were highly concerned with all of the negativity that their panel members were just ambushed with online. And
now, what is it that are they just thinking, oh, you really have, the information, you're just hiding it? Is that how it all starts? Or,
yeah,
how
everybody
do they
just,
attack
how it
them?
is. Well, we all get it. You even get it, I think, to some degree. It's just, you don't believe what I believe, so you're evil and you suck.
It's in every
Um,
single part. I blame it on social media and media and whatever, because it's
I
in every
agree. I
part of
agree
our
with you.
society.
Yeah,
It's political. It's especially political, I should say. But it's
it is politics. It's bad, but it's bad in our field too. And that's unfortunate. Um, it's one of the worst areas where it really just drives people away. And it makes it, even Dr. Bittner has been like, wow, I've tried to dip my toes in social media and to work and, be open and communicate with a community, but people don't want that. They just want to hate on everything. So I think it's especially X, but they're all kind of like that.
that's really too bad.
It
Yeah,
is.
there's a lot of I don't even know what you call it, disconnect or whatever. A lot of in the UFO world, and yeah, I mean, I don't know why people have to take sides. I mean, it's kind of funny. And if you don't think like we do, then like you say, you're bad, I'm bad, or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, when people get frustrated, I try to tell them, because I'm so pro NASA getting involved and I'm so pro what NASA and the NASA panel has discussed. I think it's a huge step in the right direction. I mean, they laid down the gauntlet. They said this is something worth doing, and we need to do it for science and for air safety. And I agree with that 1,000%. And so we need to encourage them and get that work started. Uh, and I think that really needs to happen for those people who are like, well, I already know what it is. I'm like, well, that's great, because then you especially should be encouraging this type of work, because either I or NASA or these other people that want to do this, we want to, prove what's going on. And if you're right, we're going to prove you right. So everybody should be, gung ho for this sort of work.
Now, when they first said they were only appropriating a small amount of money, do you know, has anything changed with that?
Who,
I think they were
NASA?
appropriating something like $100,000 or something like that. Yeah.
NASA, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, NASA just put money aside for that panel, the UFO study group. The team they put together, which to write their report, to advise NASA on the next steps. They've written their report. It's now out. It essentially, I kind of summarized it there in a nutshell. And that's it. NASA has not moved on it since.
Hmm.
So of course
And
they're
yeah.
embroiled in their own kind of incident right now with Boeing and the ISS. But I'm really hopeful that they'll move forward, and people that were on that panel uh, are still positive and want to move forward. Many of them, and many Congress people are liked what they had to say and would like to move forward on that. Probably makes it difficult that this is an election year, but hopefully we get some activity moving forward. The Aero interim director was the NASA liaison with Aero, but not much has happened on that front during this period of time. Hopefully, when someone new comes on, they'll tackle this. But like I said, I who wants to take on? Who wants to sit in that hot seat where you're just going to be completely defamed um, by large swaths of people in the public just by saying, "Hey, I want to look into this," just by taking on that role. Um, and this kind of gives people hopefully an idea of why it is difficult.
Yeah. I had a guest on recently. I can't even remember who it was, but they were really excited about NASA getting involved. They thought it was like that was more monumental than anything else that has happened in the last several years, according
I
to
agree with them.
I'm sure people that listen to every show may remember who it was, but
Well,
I
there's
can't remember. But yeah.
an easy entry for NASA getting involved is so like I talked about, pilots have no recourse for reporting UAP. I just did I just was at the largest, for the second year in a row, the largest air show in the country, Oshkosh, where I did a talk where I went over that topic in the details. I'm going to have a blog out soon on the Enigma site, and I'll probably do a video for open minds on this with more detail as well. But there isn't a place. The FAA, when they came to that NASA panel, it was a guy who worked on the control tower end, and they asked him, well, what is the route? What is a pilot supposed to do to report? And he essentially said, I don't know. He says, I know control tower will take a report and they'll submit it to a database, but doesn't seem like it's a database anybody's looking at. But he does say that's about it. And they get 4 or 5. But this guy was like, well, I want to know. And it was, I forget his first name, Mike, I think Gold, an attorney, space attorney who also worked for Bigelow for a period of time that was on the panel. He said, but what does a single pilot do? Just, a civilian pilot. He's like, I don't know. Well, I do know because I've looked it up, and there's a couple. If you go to the FAA website, it tells you either to submit to Newfork, who of course is not a government agency, a very low funded, somebody who's just going to take the report and put it out there for people to see, but that's about it. The other, they said, is if you felt that your safety was endangered at all, tell local law enforcement. But which is pretty ridiculous because law
Hmm.
enforcement has nothing to do with their safety. What are they going to do at
Yeah.
that point? They don't have a reporting system either. So none of that data is going to go where it needs to go. If you go to the Aero website, they say civilian pilots should submit to the PIERS system. Reporting system. Sounds great. You go look up that reporting system. It's a weather reporting system. Has nothing to do with UAP. There's nothing in there for UAP. And I can tell you from talking to a bunch of pilots over the last few years, because I'm so curious about this topic, and in Oshkosh, nobody reports there or knows about that. But despite FAA not having any rules on where to report, pilots are reporting, and they're reporting to 2 places. One of them is, well, let me go over the drone one first. So there's a guy, Ralph Howard, who's part of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Study. He felt, you know what, I'll bet you a lot of people are reporting UAP as drones. So he wrote a paper. The paper was accepted to the AIAA, where he reviewed the what was submitted to the drone submitting system, because pilots can, for safety reasons, say, hey, we had a drone that we ran across. Here's the stats about it. Well, drones aren't supposed to fly over 400 feet. he found something like 2,000 cases where drones were seen over 400 feet. And in fact, he said he found something like another hundreds of cases where the drone was much, much higher than that. That's a capability that is really difficult and not a commercial or civilian drone. Also, many of them, the shapes were described as orbs or things that weren't drones. So he concluded that certainly, people are reporting UAPs in the drone system. We also know, and I know the Debrief has written an article on this, that pilots are also reporting to the ASRS, the Air Safety Reporting System, which is a system they're encouraged to report on. They can be anonymous if they want. This is for air safety issues. So if you go to the website for it, you'll see a lot of information on hazmat. So it's like, if you work for a company that's transporting hazardous material, and they're not supposed to be, you can report them here. But any air safety things you can report there. And there are some files, because those files are publicly available, that people are reporting UAP there. So NASA even suggested, this NASA panel said, we already have this ASRS system that we do in conjunction with the FAA. We just need to tell pilots, this is where you report UAP, and then have someone on the NASA side that is pulling those reports and analyzing them. That's the easy way for NASA to get involved, and I hope that's what happens.
Wasn't Ryan Graves trying to initiate something for reporting?
Yeah,
Was
Ryan
that
Graves
military?
has been trying to initiate programs or do something. I'm not quite sure what his current idea is. It may be the ASRS. The ASRS is certainly, others are mentioning it, and it's gotten a lot of steam. I think it's the best place because it's already instituted. It's already up and running. We can start rolling immediately. There are some groups out there like Ben Hansen who are already going into that system to look for cases to analyze and scrutinize. So, yeah.
Wow. It's funny. Someone just posted the same thing I just said. Let's change gears a little bit, Alejandro, because you told me that you are starting a nonprofit to do with UAP Discovery, or UAP. Is that what it is?
Correct. UAPdiscovery.org. So it's brand new. I just started this nonprofit. And here's the website. The website's pretty much done. I'm pretty proud of it, especially if you go up to up in the upper right-hand corner to UAP resources.
Yeah.
And if you click that, because I've got all of the NASA data that I've talked about, transcripts, videos of the NASA panel and everything that the NASA panel put out. I have government documents, meaning FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA. I've got links to all of the, reporting, UFO reporting areas. I've got research papers in there, up there. So dozens of research papers, science research papers that are on UAP all in one place. And I update that on a regular basis. And I've got all the congressional hearings. So you can see all the videos, see all the supplementary data that came with them. So you've got really a big database here of all of the kind of mainstream science effort to examine this topic. What you're looking at right there, the Journal of Astronomical Instrumentation, that's an exciting one because those are all the Galileo papers from last year. So Galileo produced something like 10 papers, and those are all right there. Yeah, for example, this one. This is, a paper on building ground observatories, something that Galileo is working on. A lot of really, really good data.
Awesome.
Oh, but what is the website about? The website's primarily about gathering data and analyzing it. Not that we necessarily participate in the data gathering. It's more of networking and getting everybody together. So, for example, where do we get the data? That's one of the big areas. There are places to get data. What I really want to do, though, is beyond, using Enigma, is also get people deploying their own instrumentation suites. because there are affordable options for that. So helping to get that, sharing data from like Enigma with scientists and with researchers so they can go over that data. And just like this one I've done with the Signal Mountain is to hopefully turn those into research papers, where scientists can start to see that there's something to this phenomenon, and maybe even make discoveries, novel scientific discoveries, maybe some even extraordinary around those. So this is like the different area places you can report UAPs. I've got more than just Enigma there. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's essentially what it's for, is to bring people together for that. The other part of this is you'll see there, I do have support for professional organizations such as educators, aviators, and law enforcement. And why am I focusing on those? Just because when we're getting data, we want to be able to get data from the best places. Pilots and law enforcement are, first of all, pilots see a lot of stuff. Law enforcement is where people go to report stuff. So we need to help law enforcement gather that data, network law enforcement together. I work with and have created, helped create the UAP PD, which was just on Coast to Coast Sunday night. And you've had
good.
Mary Ann and Dave on, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so there are a couple of police officers that have started up a site to do this kind of thing, and I work with them. Work with aviators, work with Ben. I've talked with Ryan, but it's essentially to get aviators to let them know, like, hey, you need a resource. Here's Ryan Graves' place. You need data. You need to report something, and to let them know, hey, pilots, by the way, if you saw this racetrack UFO phenomenon, that's actually not an anomalous thing. That's Starlink, so we can start to inform it and get people together to focus strictly on that data gathering and analysis. And, in a positive, cooperative way, and spirit, working together with anybody who wants to do this sort of work and gather that. I want to kind of do essentially what NASA should be doing, but give them a model, and get this work rolling.
So let's talk about the students. What's that exactly?
Students, yeah. And that's another big portion, is that I really want to, first of all, you probably get this. I get this. Occasionally students want to write a paper and they need information. So I've got all this information that I just talked about that students can get. But I also created a forum where all of us can talk, and students can go in there and I can connect them with researchers. More than that, I want to help educators, because there are some educators out there that are building curriculum around this topic. So they need data and support. So I want to support them. And ultimately, what I would love to do is have some student organizations that are data collecting, student organizations that are building software and hardware to collect data on UAP, maybe putting this on the roof of the school and then submitting what they find, getting them connected with researchers whenever they get some interesting data that can be analyzed. I think we need to institutionalize this stuff. Think of if most high schools had a UAP hunting group where they've got cameras and systems on the roof of the high school. They're going to be capturing cool stuff. These kids are going to be learning software. They're going to be learning all of the different sciences, because when we're talking about sensor systems, we're not talking about just cameras. We're also talking about gathering weather data, magnetic data, gravity in some cases when possible, other types of radiation that could possibly be read. We could build readers for. We're talking about gathering a lot of different types of data and building different types of sensors. So there's a lot of different science that these kids could be learning while they do this. So I really want to, I think it's, people love this topic. So why not use that interest to get kids into science, and at the same time, hopefully getting some data where we can, break this case wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of funny. You and I have had talks over the years, and a lot of times the talks are like, well, will we ever know, what's really going on? I'm starting to think as time moves on that I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime. I just don't know.
Well,
I think
it
there's some
may.
reasons for it not
It may,
happening.
but I think this is how you do it. I think talking and talking and talking and not providing any evidence is not going to do it, because we've been doing that for decades now. This is how we do it. And I agree with you, but I'm more optimistic these days just because there's more scientists involved. And like your buddy was talking about, we got not NASA talking about this now. So I think I want to capitalize on that if possible
Yeah.
before this goes away and they just poo-poo the whole thing again. I want to try to capitalize on that. And that's what UAP Discovery is all about. It's an actual 501c3. I've got it registered in Arizona. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a slow start kind of thing. I'm so focused on Enigma stuff and everything else. But, I'm really excited about the future.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that you're one of the only people. I think you may be the only person I know that really has a job in UFOs. And I remember saying that all the way back when you were with Open Minds years ago.
I know. I recently updated my bio, and I have worked. I don't know many people, if any, that have worked 1 year full time in UFOs.
Yeah.
I've worked over 10 years paid by a third party full time to write and research about UFOs. So that is pretty rare.
Yeah.
I was going to say lucky. I'm not sure if I'm lucky, but it's interesting. It's been
Well,
interesting.
it's like the starving artist,
I know. It certainly derailed my corporate career.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it's been a lot of fun. All these years you and I did how many years do you think we did our shows back and forth? It had to be at least 3 years, right?
Yeah, at least. Time flies, so it's hard to say, but you're right. It was several years.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. And then I'd be like working an appraisal or something, and oh my God, I got UFO news to do in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, which is funny because during that time I was also doing real estate at times or other things.
That's right.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Make it work. This compulsion that just doesn't let us go.
Yeah. Yeah. You always seem to come back to it. Well, thanks so much. It's been really a lot of fun as usual chatting with you as always. And my best to all the good people out there that I know and talk to. And
thank you.
And good luck with the new nonprofit. We'll see, what happens. I hope people get interested in it and information arrives,
Yeah, come and check out the site, use the resources. I think, if you want anything government or wise, it's hard to go search for the congressional hearings to watch them and something. Come to my website and get it. Use that tool that I provided. And then also download the app, another free tool. All of this is free stuff anybody can use that's interested in this topic.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, Alejandro, you take care and I'll talk soon.
Thanks. Take it easy.
Right. Yeah, bye now. All right, everyone. So we'll be back next week with Earl Grey. The week after that will be Lou Elizondo. So thank you all very much. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.